Well, hey there guys, Conceptual Concept 6.9 here today, and I'm doing a comparison video on three 5.56 shorty rifles. So we've got a Zastava ZPAP85 for the AK. We've got a build I made, it's a Gordon adjacent build retro for AR-15, and we've got a CZ Bren 2 for kind of the new wave of firearms. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So let's start with the AR-15. This is generally referred to as America's rifle. It is a direct impingement system. Actually, it's more of an internal piston system, but let's not get into that. So pros of an AR-15 is they are generally more accurate than most semi-auto platforms. So that's a definite win there. They are the most prolific rifle in the United States, so parts are everywhere. That's a pretty dang big deal. They are generally regarded as very ergonomic. There are some improvements that can be made, and a lot of aftermarket companies have done that as well, which gets into another pro. The AR-15 definitely has the largest aftermarket support of any firearm on the market right now. You can really plug and play, make these into whatever you want. As you can see, I've kind of done a Gordon adjacent carbine with this. This is a 10.3-inch barrel. The downside to this gun in particular, it is less accurate than most AR-15s I've shot. I think there are a few reasons for that. This guy has an arrow barrel, which I've seen okay accuracy out of arrow barrels, so I don't necessarily think it's that. Now, it's a non-free float system, which automatically just affects accuracy, and handguard shift. So I am resting on the handguard, and these types of systems are pretty well known. The standard old A2, A1 handguards are pretty well known to have a little bit of handguard shift if you rest on them. So let's get into the cons of the AR-15. The biggest one for me personally is the maintenance and care schedule. So you do need to clean these semi-regularly, and you definitely need to make sure there's enough oil in here to keep it running reliably. Past that, you do have like the extractor wear patterns are pretty regular on AR-15s. I have had to change a couple extractors on mine. But overall, not a big issue so long as you keep up on that. You take care of this rifle, it'll take care of you. Next is, because it's a direct impingement system, all the gas comes through a metal straw that hooks up back into the receiver, blows into the bolt carrier group, and cycles the action. So when you're suppressing, it adds back pressure, it adds carbon, it gums up this rifle fairly quickly. So you definitely need to maintain good lubrication and make sure it's fairly clean fairly regularly. So that's definitely a downside there. Last thing I don't particularly like about AR-15s is the T charging handle. Might just be preference, but I think it's in a really awkward position to do most anything. Like locking the bolt back is definitely a two-handed affair. So can do it, it's just really awkward. It's not my favorite, but overall very ergonomic. It just has a few little quirks that I think are really mitigated with some of the next gen systems that are out there. So next up on the list is the 5.56 AK. So this is my Zastava ZPAP85. So let's get into the pros of it, and then we'll get into the cons as I see it versus the other rifles. So the pros are, biggest one for me, incredibly low maintenance schedule. You just kind of set it and forget it. You can run this thing super dirty, doesn't need oil to cycle. It's just more forgiving to neglect. Past that, cold weather performance, these guys, AKs, it's just a proven fact, are better in cold weather. Also, incredibly low recoil. So this guy is so soft to shoot. It's really easy to shoot fast with it. Keep those groups really tight. Now it can suppress better. One of the awesome parts about it suppressing better is it is a piston system. So less gas comes back into the receiver versus a DI gun like the AR-15. Now it does have some unique complications to suppressing, which I'm gonna go ahead and get into in the cons section of this. And lastly, you can fold it for transport. So it's incredibly easy to fold. Putting it in a car, doing anything vehicle-based, definite benefits there. Can't argue. AR-15s you can fold, but they can't fire more than one round with like the law folder, versus this guy can dump the whole magazine. Not a particularly good option, but it is an option. So cons are, one of the bigger ones is this is the heaviest of the options on the table today. Part of that's the suppressor, but the gun is just heavier in general. Past that, it is a little more challenging to set up a suppressor because the threads are not always concentric on these guys. You know, Eastern Europeans really love their vodka, and so lining everything up doesn't always end up happening on them. So you can end up with a little bit of a challenge, especially if you're going for a consistent through bore like 5.56 can with a 5.56 AK. Sometimes the tolerances are just not forgiving enough to make that happen. So that's definitely a downside there. Past that, they are generally regarded as less ergonomic. There are a lot of ways they are less ergonomic. There are some ways that I personally think they're more, but people will fight me on that. I'm excited to see the comments for that guy. Past that, you do end up with proprietary mags. So proprietary mags are kind of a bummer because you have to stock up on a bunch of them, and chances are your buddies aren't going to have them as well. Now you can get some of the hybrids, like I think Palmetto's doing their American Bastard that takes AR mags, but generally 5.56 AKs are using 5.56 AK mags, which are much less available than any AR-15 mag or even a 7.62 by 39 AK mag. The parts availability on these guys, so they are much less prolific in the US. I've already gone over that. But if you do have a parts breakage or anything like that, you're going to be kind of limited there. Now the aftermarket has definitely grown, and this has the second best aftermarket out of all three rifles that we're looking at today, but it is much less than an AR-15, so something to keep in mind there. So next up, straight from the Czech Republic, this is the CZ Bren 2. This is an excellent little rifle. It is a short stroke gas piston, very similar to the AR-180 or AR-18 design. Now it is kind of regarded as the Czech Scar because it shares a lot of features with the Scar, but really cool part is non-reciprocating charging handle. I know FN fixed it, but how long did that take? And as well as suppressing it does not void the warranty, so at UFN. Past that, it is a fairly accurate rifle, very lightweight, very handy. You're able to fold the stock because it is a short stroke gas piston design, as well as it's pretty dang ergonomic. It's got ambi controls in here. I don't really use the ambi bolt release and bolt catch because it is in the trigger guard. Not particularly my favorite aspect there, but I do use the ambi mag release occasionally, especially when I'm stripping a mag like that. It's pretty easy. It's pretty similar to the AK that I'm used to. Another benefit to it is it does use AR-15 mags, so that is the most common magazine in the United States, so huge benefit there. Now it also suppresses incredibly well. I do have an HB Industries gas plug in here, which really helps with that. But it suppresses really well. It's not gassy. It is an incredibly handy rifle. One of my favorites to shoot by far. So now let's get into the cons. Now, one of the bigger ones is that it is a proprietary gun. So all the parts on here, minus the magazine, is a proprietary feature. So it's good to stock up on extra extractors, extra springs, all that stuff if you want to run this as your primary rifle. Another thing is, it is definitely going to need more maintenance than the AK, but less than the AR-15 as I've found. All right, so for this drill, we're roughly 10 meters away from the 3 middle targets here. We're gonna be doing 3 on each and then 1 on each steel here, starting with the AR-15. Let's see how we do. Next up is the Bren 2. Let's go ahead and do a press check. Now this guy's getting super grimy. I haven't cleaned it in about 1K rounds or 2K rounds. So let's go ahead and see how this does. Little low. All right, so last up is the ZPAP85 here. Let's see how this guy does. All right. So I'm gonna leave you with the fact that none of these really make you a better shooter. They will all achieve close to the same goals. They all have slight little variances. It's down to preference. The important part is that you train with your firearm. It doesn't matter which one you pick, but just make sure to get outside, train, learn your rifle, become a proficient shooter, because you can have the coolest, Gucciest rifle in the world. If you don't train with it, you're still gonna suck. Past that, if you liked all this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't be afraid to go outside, touch grass, and eat ass. All right, guys?